As promised in part 2 of Module 6, we discuss Plural Group 3, which is not rocket science but just a bit more complicated than the rest. In Group 3, nouns take on the ending -ed in plural. Which nouns belong to Group 3? First of all, these are n nouns with only one syllable, especially if it's a loan word. For instance, en film, which is a loan word, becomes filmer in plural. In Group 3, we can even have nouns with more than one syllable, where the stress falls on the final syllable of the noun. Again, these nouns often happen to be loan words or international words. For instance, in police, the stress falls on the final syllable, police. Lis is pronounced longer and louder, and it's a loan word. That's why in plural you say poliser. Another example can be en telefon, stress on the last syllable, phone, and telefoner in plural. Then we even have specific stressed final syllables in n words that whisper in your ear, I am Group 3. These stressed final syllables include suffixes het, nad, skap, när, ion, tris, s, and we add er to the noun in plural. For example, en promenad becomes promenader because suffix nad is stressed. That is, it's pronounced longer and louder. En diskussion becomes diskussioner because hun is stressed. Then we have n words with unstressed suffix or at the end. For instance, in the noun en dator, stress falls on dator. That's why it acquires in plural and becomes datorer. Note that in this case, stress jumped from the first syllable onto the second syllable. Then we have both n and et words ending with eri, ori, and e. For instance, et bageri becomes bagerier. En kalori becomes kalorier. En idé becomes idéer. Et words ending with eum and ium also acquire er in plural. For instance, et museum becomes museier in plural. Et delfinarium becomes delfinarier, and so on. Some nouns that end with el and er lose e in the root and acquire er in plural. For instance, en regel becomes regler, and fiber becomes fibrer. What you should keep in mind in this group is that most nouns receive ablaut in plural. For instance, en hand becomes händer. A in the root turns into ä plus er. Or en fot becomes fötter. O turns into ö. Mind the double T in plural. Other examples include böcker, städer, nätter, and so on. And lastly, some n words ending with a vowel only receive in plural. For instance, en sko becomes skor, shoes, in plural. En händelse becomes händelser. En Malmöbo, which is inhabitant of Malmö, becomes Malmöbor, and so on. To summarize, the least problematic group is Group 4, et nouns ending with consonants. You remove the article, and that's it. You have the plural without changing anything in the noun. However, when it comes to more complicated nouns and plural forms, look out for endings el, er. Because if they're unstressed, they usually belong to Group 2, such as en muskel or musklar. But sometimes they are unstressed, and they do not belong to Group 2, because they're exceptions and belong to Group 3 instead. So if you come across a noun that ends with unstressed el and er, and you're not sure which group it belongs to, I recommend that you go for guessing Group 2, because chances are higher that it will belong to Group 2. In Group 3, we only have exceptions to this rule, and exceptions are called exceptions for a reason. There are not many. So go for group 2 in that case. Also be mindful that words ending with eum and ium have article et, and considering that they end with a consonant, one would expect them to stay the same in plural. But they are an exception and belong to group 3 with ed in plural. That was it for now. Again, I recommend that you practice on my Patreon page so that you get a better grasp of all the concepts that we have talked about, because in the next module we're going to have a revision and we're going to revise all the knowledge that we have acquired through some practice. I'll see you there.